I think this picture we have on the table has to become one of the principal, what do you call it, pictures in our teaching, now that we go further in the knowledge. Because this is a fundamental between two different states of the existence. In this part, you are literally part of universal life. In this part, you're part of the matter planetary life. So okay. You see, if you understand this definition, and a lot of enigmas in the world of science regarding the matter and plasma, and what we do, what is the matter, what the plasma is wrong. And if you look at it, it's exactly the same. The more liberation from fields, from close interaction. When you're a solid, you heat it up, you become more free, you become liquid. If you add more energy into it, you become gas. You become much more free. It's the same this way. The nano comes from more spacing, freedom of fields. When you go to a plasma, you are more free to interact compared to the nano. And then when you release the fields, fields have a total freedom to go where they like according to their energy. So you see the two match the same. And if you go back to the video which we used to play, that I said the beauty of the science is that you can use the matter to manipulate the plasma. And that the beauty of it is that the nano, the solid, the nano and the plasma are made of the same, that the strength is unbreakable. Now you see it. Now, in a very simple picture, it makes sense. This is where you finish with the opposition of the other scientists. It doesn't matter if they're expert in solid, in liquid, or gas, or now they have become nuclear, atomic, and the rest of it. Here you go to nano, to plasma, and the field. It's you who understand where you want to operate. This is what I said. The nuclear physicists were happy that there are nuclear physicists, plasma scientists now. They got their nuclear degree as a PhD from university, and they got now the plasma from Keshe Foundation Institute. So now we're going to produce another document. You're a professor in plasma nanotechnology, because nobody else has the direction or authority. Or we leave it to the job of man to understand himself, that he's added to his own knowledge, does not need a degree to show it.
Mr. Keshe, where would they fall? Where would the nuclear fall on that graph, on that drawing?
The nuclear atomic is here, is part of the whole structure.
So it could be solid, liquid, gas. Yeah. It's still, but it's nuclear is a subset of those, I guess you might say.
Without the nuclear couldn't have. It runs the same way, but here is a plasmatic condition, because it's all the same. Here you have different state of it. Here is one. Is the state of the spacing of freedom, gravitational magnetic positioning, according to the strength, even though they all pile on top of each other. Here you add into the same plasma. Here you have to add from other plasmas to create the spacing. This is the beauty and separation. And this is why now we understand when you work on this side, there is no speed limit. When you work on this side, there is a speed limit because You have to be able to pass from one into the other, and in moving through it, you have to put energy from another part to be able to go further in the other part. You have to add from one section to another, or bring from one section to another, to be able to achieve to travel in that condition. When we travel in the atmosphere using matter state, we have a barrier, because we have to penetrate it, we have to be able to go through it. But when you go to the plasma, we go through the strength field. This is what in the explanation always say. Here, you do a speed of light. This is hydrogen. Here, as I said yesterday in the teaching, if it's a copper, hydrogen, you do the speed of light. Let's say now the speed of light for man is hydrogen. Here, the speed of light is the ultimate. You cannot go any further. Here, when you go to the strength of the copper, the speed of light is by the order of magnitude. That is equal times 60, which means 60 zeros, not times 60. I tell you. That's why if you understand and you can use and you can mimic the energy of the copper in the strength field of the plasma of the hydrogen, you can travel with the speed of copper 60 times by order of magnitude faster than hydrogen. From here to planet Zeus with hydrogen takes 1 year, or let's say 10 days, or let's say 60 days for ease of understanding. When you go to the same hydrogen into the inner strength of the plasma equal to copper, you travel in 1 day. You save yourself 59. And if you go to plutonium, you see how faster you get there, minutes, hours, because it's order of magnitude, if you understand it that way. But if you look, this is your understanding, then in fact, if you travel with the speed of light at hydrogen at 1, and then you go to copper, the truth is you had the 60 days. Now you divide it by 60 zeros. Then you find in how many milliseconds you arrive. It's the order of magnitude. Is absolutely, totally order of magnitude in the plasma side. On the other side, you have to work with times. Here you work. Now, you have to understand how you create a plasma in face of the other plasma, that you can play with the order of magnitudes in magnetical and gravitational. Then you have the freedom of space. And this is part of the teaching that I will come to. How to strip magnetical and how to bring in gravitation. You have partially seen it. Harman says all the time, you have a lot of patience. I have the patience of the universe. But if you don't understand it, it becomes a monkey job. If you understand it, like the coach, the guy now, the 1010 does not rely on 90 or 81 and 144, you get a better results and better effects. Because the whole structure has become monkey see, monkey does. But if you understand it, the guy understood. He has enlightened himself to the knowledge. He's made 1,000 turn coin. And the feeling is totally different. Now you have, by order of magnitude, from 90 to 1,000. That's why he feels so strong. That's why he can cover. I'll give you a tip, and hopefully the gentleman who made this understand it. This is more or less, if you understood, becomes the mono system for flight, where when you sit inside it, if you understand it, your emotion controls the direction of where you want to take your body and how you want to increase the shield or decrease the shield, but the minimum is what you have created with the frame. Maybe that's why we had to wait for Gary to go around America to bring this thing to be shown. This is how you will create your first monocycles. Maybe you sit your child behind you too, like a cycles, but now you don't pedal, but you enter the phase of the atmospheric condition. But you don't need a control system, because if you design the right way, where the center of your emotion and the soul sits, if it fits in the right way in this system, in the center of it, you decide the movement and the strength of it. I feel safe. I don't need a huge shielding. Maybe it's like the bicycles. Now you start seeing the first mobile units, but it needs a little bit of more developing, because it's been made beautifully, but you have to understand that if you centralize the point of the fields, does not necessarily mean to be in the center of the system. You got to understand that too. You can control the lift, the position as you desire. We've seen for the first time an outline for the future transportation units. Any questions?
Mr. Cash, I had a question.
Who are you? Where are you from, please?
This is Stephen from California.
Yes, Stephen.
I had a question about the nitrogen, as you referred to it as the divider, and the extreme ultraviolet, how that plays into the mechanism that we're looking at on screen.
You are mixing between field and ray. You have to understand. When we speak nitrogen in plasmatic, we're talking about its fields. When you speak about ultra, you're speaking about the ray of a given stream. Do you understand?
I see the difference now. I see the difference now.
In the matter state, nitrogen becomes a divider. In what you call in the plasma gas state, in the amino acid, the nitrogen is part of the backbone and structure of holding everything together. That's why, if you look, I've mentioned this many times in the teaching, you always have the tree. You see carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, go in 22, go in number 38 and 39, 40, go back to 56, 54, 58, 60, all further up with others. You needed to have the spectrum. It's the spectrum. It's not that you have 3 matters. You need the extreme spectrum. What it means is when you have the nitrogen and the oxygen and the carbon, is the maximum of the 2 and the minimum of the 2, which gives you the field plane. Because if you have 1, it's not enough. And the center fields is where they bounce off. So when you speak about matter state, we don't have ultraviolet in plasma. It's a matter state, so you have to understand which one. But plasma releases some of its field that to you is ultraviolet. You understand?
I'm trying to. Thank you.
It's very simple. It's extremely simple. What you have to understand: what pulls on gravitational magnetic pole. One of the reasons we find stable elements in matter state, if you look at the stable elements and when elements become stable, is this principle, because the spectrum of the isotopes is large enough that in respect to the others, they create enough shift of fields that they don't need something else. Can you store this? Can you take a picture of this? I'm going to get rid of it. You got it, okay. What I'm trying to explain for you to understand is, let's say, can you pick up any elements which are stable and look at the spectrum? Let's say you start with iron, which starts actually around about 44 and somewhere around 70, 72. This is the isotopes of true isotopes of iron in the gravitational magnetic field spectrum. When you pick up an iron in your hand and you say it's 56, this is to you because you can explain it as iron. But in fact, it starts from here to here. And what we call the stable isotopes is the ones which adds up. That's why you find stability in different rates of decay. So now with the same material, with the next one is here. The more you come to the center, the longer life you get in the atomic life to its decay. Because it's intenser, the fields are more closer to each other. When you go to the point when the isotope field change is very much like this, that's where you get a rapid decay. And as I say, the world of nuclear has never understood this. Why? Why you get half-lives of 3 micro or half-lives of few thousands of years or hundreds of years. It's depend on which isotope in that compound of molecules are in the mixture, in the spectrum of the gravitational magnetic field strength, not in the matter state. Because even in that environment, let's say iron 72, for example, it's very heavy on one gravitational, but easy on the magnetic. So half-life becomes less. When you get such a huge deviation, and then it explains why you get beta in some and alpha in some, if you understand this. Why do we get gamma radiation release? Because you see how close you sit and how far you sit on what energy in respect from the spectrum of the isotopes, gravitational magnetic field forces. The problem is what we've seen in agriculture. In agriculture, we've done the field trials. And they used to give gas water to this one and put other seed of the same next to it and give it water and say, look, the difference is not much because you look at it as a matter state. But field interaction covers both. That's why you have. If you would have taken your test samples and sampled it here, this gives you 1 kilo, this gives you 2 kilo, this gives you 3 kilo. Here, 2 and 3 is much, they're near, but 3 and 1 is a big difference. It's the same in the spectrum. When you consider elements in the nuclear atomic structure half-life, you have to see when you isolated it, what is around it? How far is around it? How is it connected to the elements you extracted from? And that's what the scientists don't understand. And now maybe with the plasma technology, we unravel a lot of the mysteries why we have a half-life. How it comes, the position of the electron in one bandwidth to the other releases so much energy. Does the energy come actually from the electron, or does it come from the center, which does release it to allow the positioning in the new orbit? Man needs a lot to learn now that we open the science of plasma. It puts a lot of knowledge in the matter state in order. A lot of fallacies get solved and we find the right answer. Any other question?
Hello, Mr. Keshe.
You can take a picture of this as well, because this is important in the future. Atomic nuclear physicists and the plasma physicists understand this.